Hello, conscious and plant medicine community tuning in to another amazing reality sandwich share your experience interview. I'm joined today by the wonderfully enthusiastic Cesar Marine. Cesar, pleasure to connect.
Thank you, Kyle, so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and such an honor to share this space with you, to you opening up to me sharing my story and my experience. So I'm really grateful, and really honored to be here with you.
Awesome. I love your infectious enthusiasm. We met a few years ago now. You've really exploded into the psychedelic space and you're popping up everywhere at every event. So just want to acknowledge, your hustle and your journey that what it's taken to get here. So thank you for the work that you do. If you wouldn't mind, could you give, one or two cents log line, a little bit about yourself and kind of your involvement in the psychedelic space?
Yeah, of course. So, like Kyle said, my name is Cesar Marin. I'm the founder and owner of Cultivating Wisdom. Cultivating Wisdom is a lifestyle and apparel brand for people to be able to manifest the fact that they're using psychedelics responsibly, that they're using them safely, right? It all started as an apparel brand, Cultivating Wisdom, the apparel brand, and then morphed into microdosing over50.com. I've built a bridge between people my generation, people over 50, and psychedelics because they were scared, because they were traumatized, because they had that one bad experience. And now it's just, being a thought leader, offering up my voice, my experience, my wisdom to the honest, open, and objective conversation about psychedelics. There's so much wisdom that needs to be spread. There's so many questions that are being asked by people who are psychedelic curious. So, I found that through my voice, through theory, my experiences, we can open up these conversations. So, that's really why I created Cultivating Wisdom, was to have these honest, open, and objective conversations about psychedelics.
What does it mean to cultivate wisdom in your experience, in your opinion?
So and it's funny because it came from my first big intentional sitting with psychedelics. I had before had a recreational curiosity experience with psychedelics, which really quickly said, that's not what this is about. There's something a little bit more than this. And then when I had my first intentional psychedelic experience, the first message that comes up, if you've heard my story before, you'll know that the mushrooms actually told me, go lie on the dining room table. And I was like, what are you talking about? It said, go lie on the dining room table. And as I lie on the dining room table, all I hear is, go set buffet tables of wisdom to cultivate a better future. So for me, the message was, look, everyone has wisdom, some type of wisdom. Everyone's an expert in something. So if we can get people to come and share that wisdom that they have, share that, whether it's through sitting down at a table, whether it's through meetings, whether it's through one-on-one contacts, if we're able to share that wisdom that we have, that knowledge that we have, and whatever we're passionate about, and cultivate it into other people to create a better future, that's really where that mission comes from. It comes from the sense of sharing what we have, right? The more we share, the more we connect, the more we have, the better humans we can be.
Beautifully put. I'm curious, how did you first get involved or open up yourself to plant medicine, psilocybin, the psychedelic space? Did you spawn from the mycelium network? Were you cannabis user in your teenage years? Walk me through the journey of your plant medicine experience.
I appreciate you asking, Kyle. I really do. It's. I always say, look, everyone's story into psychedelics is unique, and the only reason why my story is unique is because it's my story. That it's a bit of a unusual tale. Yes, of course. You might know I was a producer at CNN for 25 years. I produced news at the beginning. I was producing sports towards the end, and in all of this, I was a functioning cannabis user, right? But to the point where cannabis had become the relationship with cannabis had become really toxic, right? It was a sense of get up, get high, go to work, get high. I mean, I set off an alarm at CNN because I didn't have the mind sense to say, you know what, maybe go outside and do that. Maybe go to your car and rip that vape. No, the cannabis had controlled me so much. And again, it was my own thing. It was my own weakness. It's not the cannabis's fault. It's my fault for not being able to say, not right now, not having that warehouse. So as all this is going on, someone has an experience with psilocybin, they talked to me about it, and the curiosity's peaked at. And more the curiosity in a recreational sense of, you know what, where's this new high? How can I find it? What is it about? You know what's going to happen. The cannabis doesn't really do it for me that much anymore. I'm always chasing something. So why don't we try? Why don't we try mushrooms? Um, and it was, like I said, a recreational curiosity that turned into something incredibly different real quickly. The first time I ever tried mushrooms, I have a piece of the chocolate bar. I didn't know any better. I didn't know anything about dosage. I didn't know anything about intentions. I didn't know anything about set and setting. But it was weird because I had that piece of that chocolate bar, and there was a sense of a smile of a microdose, right? I didn't know what a microdose was back then, but there wasn't anything there, and it was crazy because I always tell people, knowing knowing myself, right, knowing that I'm a recovering cannabis dependent, knowing that I can sometimes my relationships with things be skewed. I'm thinking any other substance, I would have been like the next day, let's go. Maybe I did it wrong, maybe whatever. But the medicine or the mushrooms, whatever you want to call them, said, wait, just wait a second. And it wasn't until a week later where I have half of the chocolate bar where things completely changed. It was this sense real quickly. We were on this bike ride here in Atlanta. So I literally had my own bicycle day, my own bicycle day experience. And we were on this bike ride, and once the mushrooms kicked in, once the medicine kicked in, there was this sense of like, wait a minute, that's what my hands feel like? That's crazy. And that's what it feels like to breathe. And I look around and these beautiful humans around me, and it was a sense of awakening, like a sense of like, what have I been missing out on? And I get back to my car, and of course I look at my phone, and my phone looks very trippy. True, it's like 3D, and I'm like, okay, wow, this is crazy. Like this is, you know. But once I get in the car and once I start driving home, my conscious kicks in, and my conscious literally grabs me by the scruff of the neck and says, "What are you doing? Like, are you serious? Like, you're 55 years old, and what are you chasing highs? Is that what you're doing? Like, and let's be honest, you're literally driving a ton weight vehicle, hallucinating because the streetlights are going off. Like, you're putting yourself in danger. You're putting other people in danger. Like, what is wrong with you?" And Howard Huxley had a famous quote when he coined the word psychedelic, which said, "To fathom hell or soar angelic, take a pinch of psychedelic." And that's exactly what happened. I soared angelically in the sense of, this is what my hands feel like. This is what joy feels like. Look at all these people. And then I got that sense of fathoming hell in my conscious saying, what are you like? What's wrong with you? Like, what's, hello? And it was crazy, Kyle, because as a journalist, and you're a journalist yourself, you want to know what happened right away. I start typing away, like, what just happened? What did these psychedelics do that did this to me? And of course, right away, I come across the fact that psychedelics are being used as medicine. What are you talking about? For anxiety, for depression, for PTSD? And I come across this term microdosing. And I'm like, hold on, what is microdosing? And I realized, wait a minute, people are using microdosing to overcome their dependencies to alcohol, to cannabis, to different things. And right away, the heart was like, that's it. That might be the elixir to overcome or change your dependency with cannabis. And by the way, you're most likely going to get laid off from CNN. And I was like, what? So right away, I become an investigative journalist into psychedelics, into microdosing, and I become, an expert in what's going on, the science that's going on, and different studies, and reading, double blind, reading reality sandwich, hearing podcasts on psychedelics today, and just really getting the sense. And as I start to microdose, and my life completely changes, I'm able to change my relationship with cannabis. I'm able to say, not right now. I don't need this right now. Not right now. And I start to think, okay, you're going to get laid off from CNN. What are you going to do? I realized that what the mushrooms really wanted to do was to tell me, hey, we're going to close this 25-year chapter at CNN, and we're going to open up this new one where you are going to be a thought leader, an advocate, a spokesperson for the safe and responsible use of psychedelics. So that's really how all of this navigated. And then 2 years later, I find myself surrounded by the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life. I find myself going to conferences and just being able to spread this message. And it's become a beautiful thing. I mean, my life has changed drastically, dramatically in 2 years. But I think it's a testament to, um, with mental clarity, with tenacity, and with something that you really love, you can reinvent your life at any age. I mean, my something that identified me for half of my adult life. I mean, for half of my adult life, I was Cesar Marin, the CNN producer. That was taken away, but the psychedelics were able to help me change that mindset of nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. You just have to put your mind to it. So I'm incredibly grateful for what psychedelics have done to me and how they've changed my life.
Yeah, my first tangent is I'd like to explore a little deeper your relationship with cannabis. A lot of people like to say cannabis is not addictive, but as we see, it could be habit forming and detrimental to some people. So, would love to explore your first time using
Yeah.
cannabis, kind of the relationship you had, viewed in the progressing with it.
That's it's a long relationship, right? I tried cannabis for the first time at the age of 13, 14. Like many teenagers, right? It's sort of you're influenced by somebody. Somebody says, "Hey, you know what?" And again, peer whether it's peer pressure, whether it's curiosity, um, and it was cannabis was a part of my life for a really long time, right? On and off. It was a bit of escapism, right? There was a lot of escapism. There was a lot of let me just chill, let me just numb myself, let me just you know through my first marriage, there was a lot of escapism going on, and so it became part of my life. It became part of who I am, and I'm glad that you said that you brought up the point that there's people who think or say, not think, people who say or manifest that cannabis isn't addictive or it's not habit forming. I think everything is habit forming. Ice cream is habit forming. Sugar is habit forming. Alcohol is habit forming. Caffeine is habit forming. Pornography is habit forming. Pulling your hair can be habit forming, right? So the sense that no, cannabis can't be habit forming, it can, because at the end of the day, it's not the substance, it's not the action, it's the person. It's the person not being able to say not right now, right? It's the person feeling that whatever it is, that quick dopamine high that it's going to give you, but it's not sustainable, but it's something that you're so used to. It's something that it's become a habit, right? It's sort of, what's the difference between a habit and an addiction? I can be addicted to working out, right? But or is that a habit, right? Or I can be addicted to cannabis, or is that just a habit that you have? So that sense that you can't get addicted, that cannabis isn't habit forming, for me, my opinion is that it's a little bit myopic, right? So it's cannabis was that it was an escapism, right? It was never used therapeutically, and I know it can be used therapeutically. And it all comes down to intentions, right? It all comes down to, that being said, I'm never going to lie and say, well, you know what? I've never smoked cannabis since I started to microdose. No, I'd be lying. I'd be lying. I have, but there's been intention behind it. There's been intention, whether it's, what? Some friends came over, we were just relaxing, we're having a good time. You know what I mean? I wanted to sort of, have a good time with my friends and laugh, right? I think that's, to me, for me, that's a better relationship than just not thinking and going, let me just light it up, let me just whatever. Because then it becomes a habit, right? Then it becomes I'm just doing this, because I'm used to it, whether it's the smoke or whether it's the sense. But for me, it did get to that point where you'd get a little high, but then there was nothing else, so you were always chasing. I was always chasing. I was always chasing to see if I can get a little bit higher, to see if I could sense a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I wasn't feeling anything. I was just numbing myself. I was just numbing myself to reality. I was just numbing myself to things I have to do. And that's just, I'm talking about myself, right? There's people who can really be productive on cannabis. There's people who can be creative with cannabis. There's people who use cannabis because of ailments or body pains, or it's helping them with, some type of chemotherapy. So it's not that I'm not a fan of cannabis. I personally just have respect for it. I have a big deal of respect for it because I know the relationship that I personally have with it, and it just became, it was unmanageable, and I can never let myself get to that point, whether it's cannabis or anything, where I can't have the sense of saying not right now.
Would love your cultivating wisdom, eyesight perspective on this. Cannabis gets left out of, I feel, the psychedelic conversation and
Mhm.
plant medicine
Yeah, it
conversation.
does.
It's treated as a whole separate industry. It's not included in the ritual or things. Is so. Two-pronged question: Is cannabis psychedelic, and why is it being left out of the conversation as we move forward here? The focus is on psilocybin, MDMA, ibogaine, some of this other
hmm
stuff.
hmm I mean, obviously, the term psychedelic is comes from mind expanding, mind manifestation, right? So there is no reason why not to think cannabis is not a mind expanding, mind manifestation substance, because it does, right? Um, I just think because, and there's this sense, and we were having this discussion a couple of days ago. A couple of days ago, Oprah had the podcast with Michael Pollan, right? And it created some buzz, right? But there were some people in the psychedelic space who were taken aback and said, "Wait a minute, hold on a second. Wasn't Oprah the person who, a couple of years ago, threw shade on MDMA and said that, MDMA could put holes in your head and, and it was just bad. But it was at a time where the recreational part of MDMA was getting more headlines, it was gathering more attention than the therapeutic part of it, right? So right now, there is a lot of therapeutic use for cannabis, right? There's tons of it. There's tons of medical studies being used, but the recreational use of cannabis or the just normalized use of cannabis in the sense of you can get now drinks that have cannabis in them, right? So it's become a little bit more mainstream, a little bit more accepted, and psychedelic still falls under this. Yes, it's therapeutic, but yes, it's recreational. But people are still stigmatized, but still, people are scared of it. People don't understand it. So I think that cannabis obviously has grown a life on its own, a total life on its own, right? To the point where we have smoke shops now that are dedicated to cannabis. We have TV shows. I think I saw there's a whole network dedicated to cannabis, right? Whether it's the safe, the responsible cannabis culture, cannabis gear. So I think that for that reason, cannabis might be left out of the psychedelic conversation, or like you said, psychedelics are seen as the traditional psychedelics, LSD, MDMA, mushrooms, mescaline, now obviously ibogaine, but it's I think it's the lack of the therapeutic conversation with cannabis that gets it pigeonholed into this category by itself, right? I think that if there was more talk, there was more science, there was more media exposure of the therapeutic use of cannabis, then people might be open more to see it and categorize it in the same light of the therapeutic use of psychedelics, which again, it goes back to the Oprah thing. When Oprah did her story, the attention on the recreational use of psychedelics was the bigger part, and the therapeutic was really, really small. Where now we see the therapeutic use of psychedelics obviously getting a lot more headlines and being out in the mainstream than the recreational use of psychedelics. So it's this balance beam of cannabis is seen more as a recreational substance. I'm just going to go to whatever, and the therapeutic part of it isn't talked about it that much. Where psychedelics right now, there's this huge big talk about the therapeutic use of psychedelics, and the recreational use of psychedelics is talked about a lot less.
it can be pretty ego dissolving, working for CNN and being a producer there for 25 years and then being told, kind of thanks, like, see you later, So taking that intention and going into your first psychedelic experience with mushrooms, how did you process that? What was your deeper intention? How did you feel reflecting on your work there? And
Hmm.
what is the future of the modern media landscape? I run a quote psychedelic media business myself, and it's definitely a struggle. Trying to pitch, get sponsorship dollars. This is all funded through other work that me and my partners do. We're certainly not making any money on this, so we do it for the passion and the art project that it is.
That's it's a real poignant question, and the reason why is because the um, things are changing, right? The landscape of media itself is changing, and yes, the getting let go of CNN was really it was hard in the sense that it was I had built up, such a career, right? I'd been there for 25 years, but at the same time, I was going through the motions, right? And working in sports, especially, there was many times where a show that I had produced that I'd spent, hours putting together and making sure it was fine, and 2 minutes before we go to air, something that before wouldn't have been breaking news, all of a sudden it's breaking news. The president did this. We got to kill your show. So that was more ego killing than the actual being let go of CNN. And the reason why the being let go of CNN wasn't as hard for me, or it wasn't as crushing for me, is because at the time psychedelics had come into my life and it gave me this lifeline. It gave me this sense of here's what you're going to do now, here's what you're going to do next. But at the same time, and you and I talked about this before the interview, we've gotten the sense that 2 years ago psychedelics were on this big time high. Like, it's big, and it's for everybody. It's getting big, and there's money being injected into it, and there's more media brands, and there's more talk about it, and we've slowly, not declined, but there's less interest. The FDA thing with MDMA last year didn't help, but I think that the curiosity for the non psychedelic, for that psychedelic curious person, is there, and that's where we come in, right? That's where reality sandwich comes in. That's where cultivating wisdom comes in, because we are the media now. Like, we are the true media. This isn't. We can't wait for CNN or ABC or CBS or NBC to tell our stories of healing and how we're becoming better and how we're using these substances to optimize our human experiences, whether through healing or whether through optimization. It's up to us. It's up to us to create the buzz. It's up to us to create the narrative. And as we do that and we get more people interested little by little, then I think that's how we grow. In the last couple of days, I've gotten this real sense, being in community, being around people who are in this space, being part of stuff like Dennis Walker's incubator, being at my local psychedelic association meeting. I've gotten a real sense that we're each one of us is a mushroom. Every human is a mushroom. We're all these human mushrooms, and as humans, mushrooms, just like regular mushrooms, we have this potential to extend our mycelial network connection, right? So it's up to us now to sort of extend those mycelial connections. And yes, there's going to be mushrooms that don't want to grow, or mushrooms that we might not grow with, and that's fine, because if you think we have 10 ways for our mycelial network to connect, maybe they don't connect to all 10, but the 6 or 7 ones that we do connect to as media, that's where it's going to be. The change is going to be when we create, you know, honest, open, and objective information like Reality Sandwich does. That's how we get more people, and that's how those people who read it then attract more people, and that's how, again, we grow, and we get those sponsorship dollars, or we get those attention. It's it's sometimes we have this sense of like, why aren't we up here? Like, why aren't more people talking about this? Why aren't there more shows? Why aren't there more people more openly? Well, we're not up here because we're right here. And 12 months ago, 6 years ago, we were down here. I mean, think about it, Kyle. If 10 years ago, someone would have said, Kyle, you're going to be doing an interview about psychedelics with some guy that used to work at CNN, who's now become a thought leader. And by the way, you have this wonderful magazine that talks about psychedelics. you'd probably be like, how many drugs did you do? Because that's not going to happen. And look at where we are now. So it's a sense of, let's figure out where we are, right? Let's integrate, right? Integration is such a big talking point in the psychedelic experience. How do we integrate what we've done? How do we integrate the messages of these journeys? How do we integrate, what I've seen in through my microdosing? But it's how we integrate where we are right now as a movement, as an ecosystem, as a collective, right? This collective awakening that people talk about. What do we do with it now, right? How do we bring the people together? Because at the end of the day, it's a beautiful space. The people that are in this collective, are just such heartwarming individuals, and for me, one of the wonders, or the real wonders of what psychedelics have done, is Kyle. Let's think about it. We literally live in a country right now that is so divided that two people can look at a tree and one can say, "Oh, that's green." The other one says, "No, that's forest green. F you, you're not my friend anymore. You don't see things the way I do." Well, are we serious? Is that what we've become? But then you come into these psychedelic spaces, right, with these other mushrooms, and you think I care who you voted for? You think I care if you're pro-life or pro-choice? You think I care if you're pro-gun or anti-gun? I don't. I just care that you're a human. And if that's what mushrooms can potentially do, if that's what psychedelics can potentially do, is us as our own media, create this buzz, share our experiences, share how these things have changed us, share how they've made us better people. Then there's a real future in this collective, I believe.
Beautifully put. What is your current microdosing regimen, or how often are you integrating and processing, your current,
So
medicinal
I
stack?
I've been I've been microdosing now for 2.5 years, right? Um, I'm more of I I'm more of an intuitive microdoser, but that being said, I do have regimens. I do go on protocols, and I try to stick to them. As no, I'm not a fan of the word religious, but as consistent as possible. When I'm microdosing psilocybin, when I'm microdosing mushrooms, I really enjoy the Fadiman protocol of 1 day on, 2 days off. I usually microdose 250 milligrams. That's where I found my sweet spot is, my afterglow is. But I also really enjoy, for the clarity, for the focus, microdosing LSD. I have found that going on, for me, 4 week protocols of 2 days on, 2 days off, of 10 UGs, 10 micrograms of LSD has been wonderful for clarity, for focus, for so usually if I have a long term project that's coming up, something I really want to make sure that I'm not having all these other distractions. I'll go on protocols of microdosing LSD, which has been wonderful. And I've been lucky because sometimes the trick with microdosing LSD or microdosing anything is that consistent dosage, right? And sometimes with microdosing tabs of LSD, it's hard because it's like, is that a tenth? Is that a 12th? Is that 15 UGs? So I've been lucky to find a company that does perfectly dosed microdoses of LSD. So that's become, that's become. I always tell people ask me, so what is microdosing? What does it look like? What should I feel? And I love the analogy I love to use is, like, this is my life. This is my life, not microdosing. Okay, it's still there, but it's sort of not clear. This is my life, microdosing. Okay, microdosing mushrooms. Now, if I were to take those lenses out and put in brand new, crisper, no smudges, no nothing, that's microdosing LSD. It's just so much clearer, so much crisper. Life is really beautiful. So it's I have a good relationship with both of them. Mushrooms definitely, psilocybin definitely is my heart medicine, as they say. I try not to sound woo woo, right? I try not to sound woo woo and all this, but They are the molecule that I most feel grounds me, makes me feel heart centered, makes me feel creative, empathetic. Really creates the best version of myself. Where the LSD creates the most focused version of myself.
Again, beautifully put. As this is the Share Your Experience series, I'd love for you to really walk me through, do some deep storytelling on one particular plant medicine experience that's truly impacted you, inspired you, gave you some revelation. What was, what was it this first LSD regimen? Was it your first time taking, what is that experience you feel called to share with me today?
You know which one I'm going to share, and the reason why I'm going to share it is because um, it's a testament to even, and you'll never hear me use the word a bad trip, right? I'm more of a challenging experience, challenging journey type situation, and it goes back to wording, right? And all of us in this space, the more cautious we could be with the words we use, the more we can open up these conversations and not scare people, right? So I'm going to share my most challenging journey because at the end of the day, it was one of the most profound because of the message afterwards, right? This is about a year and a half ago. I had all the intentions in the world. I'm midway through starting this business. I'm starting to get a little bit stuck. I'm putting in blood, sweat, and tears. I'm putting in, 13-hour days, and yet we're stuck, right? There's this lull in the creation of cultivating wisdom of what we're doing. So, I decided to have an intentional sitting with about five. It was about 5 grams. It was 5 grams of psilocybin to really. I wanted to open up my mind. I wanted to say, okay, where are the blind sides that I'm not seeing? Like, what else can I do for this business or for myself to sort of gauge where I need to go? Sure enough, take the medicine, have my journal, everything ready. And half hour into it, I feel nauseous and I feel sick. And I look at myself and I feel like I'm literally like I'm dying. My brain is telling me you have cancer. Okay, you have cancer, and you're days away from dying. Okay, you're going to die in a couple of days. So process this, and it's a very challenging 3 hours of, and I made maybe the mistake of looking at myself in the mirror, right? Which that compounded the sense of dread and the sense of dying, the sense of just weakness and the sense of my immortality is not there. I'm going to be gone. What's going to happen? What legacy did I leave? And it's scary. And I'm like, okay, I want to get off of this. Like I don't want to live this anymore. Maybe if I walk outside and I go to open the door, and all I see is cobwebs, it's almost impossible for me to go through the threshold of the door. And now I'm concerned. Right now I'm like, okay, what is going on? Why am I dying? Like what did I do to get to this point? And as my consciousness starts to catch up with what's going on, it starts to say, well, anything you've done before this to get sick, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do, whatever. You're going to get sick. But moving forward, there's a whole bunch you can do. So before, you would have an exercise regimen. You'd wake up, you'd exercise, you'd get things done, you'd go to work, you were taking care of yourself. Before, now you just wake up, you go answer emails, do this, do that. I got to do this. I got this meeting. I'll work out later. No, I'll work out tomorrow. No, I promise I'll work out Monday. Starting Monday, I'll work out. Right. Or your nutritional regimen. Before, you would meal prep. You would have certain times where you would eat. Now it's just like you're eating at all hours. It doesn't matter. You're snacking on this. You're snacking on that. So you're not taking care of yourself. So all these dreams, all these visions, all these plans that you have for cultivating wisdom, you're not going to be able to see them through if you don't start to take care of yourself. So as challenging as just horrendous and scary, it was scary. Seeing yourself and going, I'm going to die in a couple of days. The message afterwards was like, I get it, I get it, I get it. And then, like we said, then I had two choices: either continue to do what I was doing or integrate what that experience was to then put myself on the right track. So it was, and again, look, I've had beautiful experiences, I've had enlightening experiences, but that one experience was a true testament of of how psychedelics, even in a challenging experience, when you really listen, can have profound, profound messages.
Beautiful put. Thank you for sharing. It's been such an honor to get deep with you. What's been keeping you inspired recently? Where can people follow you, and what's on the horizon here with cultivating wisdom?
So there's a couple things that are keeping me inspired. One, the every time that I look at my Google alerts, and there's more stories about psychedelics. There's more stories about microdosing. Looking at Oprah and Oprah doing a story or a podcast with Michael Pollan and opening up this conversation. That excites me. Being at South by Southwest, and seeing one, being around these wonderful people, but also getting to spend some time with Rick Doblin and realizing that there's going to come a time where he's got to hang up the gloves, right? And I look at myself and it's like, okay, well, how much longer am I going to talk about this? And then who's going to come after me? And then being at South by Southwest and seeing all these young kids, in their 20s and their 30s, like really wanting to take this message and deliver it the right way, right? Again, that this isn't about getting high. This isn't about tripping balls. This isn't about, losing yourself. This is about really making a better humanity, right? About optimizing ourselves as humans to love more, to care about each other more, to do better things. That's got me super excited. That sense of young people doing this the right way. The sense of going to an after party, an after event, psychedelic party, and there's not this overwhelming smell of alcohol, right? That sort of people are a lot more aware of their surroundings and what they're doing and what they're being. So that type of stuff to me is really exciting. But again, like we said, this is a slow walk. This is a slow walk. There's still a lot of people who will never ever open up to the fact that the potential of psychedelics is outweighs, when used responsibly, right? When used responsibly, outweighs the dangers. So we're always going to have that sense, but it's. I'm excited about the fact that right now at this moment, more than ever, I can talk to five people. Yes, of course, two of them are going to say drugs, illegal, psychedelics. You're going to jump off a building. You're going to run in front of a car. But two of them are actually going to go, what? Hold on a second. Medicine? Are you serious? They're using psychedelics as medicine? And there's studies in Johns Hopkins University and NYU and Emory and Stanford and Berkeley and Harvard? Yes. But I know that there's going to be that one person who's going to be like, okay, that's what I needed to hear. Like, I needed that. Like, what you went through, you got divorced, I've been divorced. You lost your job, I lost my job. Your kids don't call anymore, my kids don't call anymore. And now you're using psychedelics as a life performance enhancer to love your life, to know that every day is the best day of your life, to know that, it can't get any better than this. That makes me excited. That makes me excited that we have this potential, that at least we're going to have people listen, that we're going to have people at least be curious enough to say, hey, you know what, maybe this might work, because it does. Look, just today I had someone who I started to work with 2 weeks ago, and he said, he was like, wow, I sleep better, I think clearer, I hug my kids more, all because he's microdosing psilocybin. And that's exciting. That to me is exciting. That change in people's lives through something that the earth has given us. That to me broadens my smile, bigger than it is right now. Where people can find me, look, there's a couple ways, right? My only ask for people is, if you can, wear a shirt that says microdosing, right? This starts conversation. It's about those conversations. It's about you wearing a shirt that says microdosing, and someone comes up to you and says, "Whoa, wait, you microdose? I've heard about that. I've read about that. Can you cultivate me with some wisdom?" Or someone says, "Oh, you microdose? So do I. What are you microdosing?" "Oh, I'm microdosing psilocybin." "Really? I'm microdosing LSD." "No way. And you have a reliable source for that?" "Yes, of course I do. You're part of the collective. Come here. I got you. I'll embrace you." So definitely check out the apparel at cultivatingwisdom.net. Right? We're conscious about the fact that we need to be a little bit more eco-friendly. So we're trying to transition and put a lot more eco-friendly um, products in the store, that it's not fast fashion, right? We want people to wear their microdosing t-shirt until it falls apart. You know what I mean? We're not fans of fast fashion, which is fans of educating and having these conversations. Obviously, if you're over 50, or your parents, anyone in that state in their lives that you want to get them to at least open up with a possibility, there's a platform, microdosingover50.com, which, again, I offer up honest, open, and adaptive information about psychedelics. And then I have a podcast called the Love You Wealth Podcast, which is a podcast mainly geared towards men over 40, men in their second chapter of their lives, who for a really long time, wealth has been measured by how big your bank account is, right? Wealth has been measured by how big your chest is in the boardroom, right? Wealth is measured by how many Mercedes you have in the garage. But it has to come to a point where your wealth shouldn't be measured by the numbers, but it should be measured by the impact that you have, by the legacy that you're leaving, by the amount of hugs you give your kids, and not the amount of Xboxes that you give them, by the amount of dates you go on with your daughter to show her what a real man should be like, than the amount of Lululemon, leggings that you buy for her, or Lululemon bags. So that we redefine wealth as being present, as being healthy, and taking care of myself. That's the real measure of wealth. So it's called the Love You Wealth Podcast, because that's what we hope that people do, that people definitely manifest all the wealth possible. Kyle, like I tell people, look, I'm gonna manifest all of them. Like I want stacks that reach the roof, not for me, because I only want to take what I need. Right? I need my home. I need my clothing. I need food. I need to take care of mine, but that's what I need, right? And if I can take what I need and then the rest of them, because this smile is not going to get any bigger. You know what I mean? No matter how big these stacks get, it's not going to get any bigger. But if I can take some of that and spread it out and create smiles where they're needed, that's love you wealth. That's what we're trying to sort of manifest and show people, that you might get more out of handing a homeless guy $10 and making him smile, and maybe he changes the way he is, than ignoring them and using that $10 to buy yourself some trinket or some expensive coffee that you really didn't need, right? And it's we need that. I saw that. I was one of I play this game. I used to play this game with my kids, high and low. And one of the highs definitely is South by Southwest. I was walking, and there was a homeless gentleman who I can sense walked next to me, and he was cursing at, he was just, again, angry, upset, mad. And I looked at him, and looked at him in the eyes, and I'm like, why are you so angry? And he said, nobody sees me. Like, it's like I'm invisible. Like I served this country. Like I gave blood. Like I have shrapnel in my head, and no one sees me. Like, F that. And I was like, I get it. I see it. But here's the thing. Um, if you don't at least try to lead with love yourself and vibrate some type of positive energy, that's all you're going to get back. Right? So if instead you walk around with a smile and you say good morning to people, you're going to confront 5 people. 3 of them are probably going to walk right by you. One of them might even spit on you. But there's going to be that one that's going to see your smile, that's going to take that good morning, and they're gonna make a difference. So it's about that. It's about, we're in this constant anger situation. We're angry at the guy that cut us off. We're angry because this one voted for that. We're angry because someone doesn't see us. But if we lead with love, right, then it all comes back. And that at the end of the day, it's the mission of cultivating wisdom, is that we spread love, right? That we spread much love, like the mushrooms tell us, right? That we go out with smiles, that we go to supermarkets and say good morning to everybody, that we create this collective awakening of humans, because of not a sort of, and look, I'm 57, right? I don't know if there's 2 left. I don't know if there's 12 left. I don't know if there's 22 left. I don't, but I just want to make sure that the ones that are left, right, that I help create something that creates more smiles. And whether it's with no money in my pockets and going into a supermarket and saying good morning to everyone possible because it might change somebody's day, or down the road where I have stacks like this and I can say, hey, here, be happy, be happy. What can I do to help you bring a smile to your face? So that's what their mission is. What the real purpose of cultivating wisdom is, to cultivate this wisdom, right? To cultivate this wisdom that we have, and at the same time, try to create happiness amongst the other humans, because I think we're in a moment where we need more hugs, right? We need more smiles, we need more high fives, we need more attaboy, attagirl. We need that, but it has to come from us. It has. We have to lead that way. We have to lead with that smile, with that joy, with that happiness, with that love.
Caesar, thank you so much for spreading love you wealth, for sharing with me today, and excited for to continue to cultivate wisdom with you. Thank you.
Kyle, thank you so much. Thank you again for opening up this opportunity for me to share my story, for me to again cultivate wisdom, and thank you for what you're doing. Right, again, hats off. I don't want to lose this opportunity to really thank you for what you are doing. Like, all of us are needed. At the end of the day, we're all pioneers, right? You're a pioneer for what you're doing, creating this space, creating this media conglomerate, this media company, to talk openly about this and freely about this, and give out information that's honest, open, and objective. That's imperative. That's paramount. It's priceless what you're doing. So thank you so much for to you and everyone at Reality Sandwich, because it's these platforms that'll make a difference, right? And like you said, we're all there, right? We're all like, okay, you know what I mean? We're having to sort of take and I didn't really want to break that piggy bank, but I believe in what we're doing, and I know that we're that close, and I believe that we're at the edge of something big, of something real big. So look, I'm excited. I'm grateful that we're able to be in each other's circles, right? I'm grateful, like I said, for you opening up this opportunity for me to share my story. So thank you. I appreciate you, brother.